I'm going to introduce you to our lovely presenter today, Josh Penzell, VP of AI Services at ELB Learning. Josh is a strategic AI consultant with over 15 years of experience in sales enablement, process improvement, and organizational innovation. He developed the Theater Think methodology, blending his theater background to create impactful learning experiences for companies like Amazon and Skillsoft. I'm going to hand you over to Josh. Josh, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. I am in Seattle. I see we got some folks from California, Pittsburgh. Hope everyone who's in perhaps the south of our, in the Carolinas, if hope you're okay. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen out here. While I'm doing that, here's what I'd like you to do into the chat window, if you don't mind. If you could hire a temporary or a permanent employee, right? I just want you to think about this, or employees, to show up right now. What is the problem that you'd put them on? What is the thing you'd have them build? What's the project you would want? Start thinking about that. I'd love you to type it in. Just maybe a nice chunk. I would love someone to build me a something that will scan LinkedIn for me, right, all the time. And I would love that team to be able to respond to all my posts and keep my brand up to date, whatever that thing is. And I want you to think about that, because by the end of this session, I actually think you're going to see that you can actually hire some of those folks right now using AI. And I'm seeing some great ones. A chatbot for the LMS platform, an onboarding program for sales, AI simulation, someone to submit everything to this is wonderful, right? All this. So by the end of this, I think some of y'all are going to outsource this to your new AI hires. A little more about me, though. Why am I here? Well, Josh Penzell, like it was said, I always find it funny when you have to reintroduce yourself on these slides. But I worked at Alexa, Zillow Rentals. By the way, I always have to say stop whenever I say her name, because she still talks to me, and it is annoying. I was at Zillow Rentals, by the way, so if you're in the States, I did not destroy the housing market. That was the other part of Zillow. And then Skillsoft, which many of you know, probably as might have their content library. So also a former musical theater director. I have a Master of Fine Arts in theater, directed off-Broadway, which is why my agendas tend to look something like this. So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about what is AI, the good, the bad, the ugly. How does it know the difference between those terms? But really, what is it? What are we talking about when we're talking about AI? Then I want to talk about how we're going to think about AI in our team, how we create the AI team. And I think hopefully you're getting some of my references here. And then over here on the right, what I want to do is make sure that you walk out of here with a way to start using AI, to hire AI. This is Knight Rider, Kit, right? If anyone knows. And the reason I chose Kit is Kit wasn't just a tool, it's part of the team. And I think one thing I want us to think about right now is AI is not a new tool. It is a new hire. While you let that sink in, what is AI? What are we talking about here? I think there's a lot of confusion. So maybe we'll just get started for a second on just aligning. So I have a bunch of terms over here on the left: deep learning, machine learning, large language models, artificial intelligence, Gen AI, traditional machine learning. One bucket is bigger than them all. There's one bucket that controls all of these, in which all the others fit. Which one of these is that bucket? If you want to go ahead and type into chat, right? Pop it in. But what is the big bucket here? D, artificial intelligence. B, yeah. So it's artificial intelligence, right? Artificial intelligence is a branch of computer science. It's the idea of trying to make intelligence from something, artificial intelligence, something that's not intelligent. The Mechanical Turk in the 1800s, there's a robot, really crazy. It could play chess. It could beat people at chess. Of course, it was actually just a small grandmaster moving the pieces, but it was an attempt at artificial intelligence. All right, so what's the next one? One ring to rule them all. What is the next thing? So we have artificial intelligence. So what's the next big, not the big ring to rule them all, but perhaps what's the next pinky ring? right? What is the one we're going to next? What is the next bucket that encompasses all of these? A, deep learning. Good. All right, so now we have machine learning. Machine learning is the idea of getting machines to be able to sort of learn, to be able to start giving us predictions based on information. If you've ever used Spotify, Netflix, the recommendation engines, right? The idea that you're on one site and suddenly it appears on the other. We've been living with this for a while, right? Now, where we start getting different is, I think, where the next one's going, right? Is deep learning. And that's where we start almost recreating the human brain in many ways. We create these neural pathways. It allows machines to sort of learn from themselves and start doing things that are very human-like. For instance, I said the name of a certain assistant that might be in my house at times, right? That Amazon put out a few years ago. Siri on my phone, Google, all of these different technologies now you can talk to. And that's been around for a while. So natural language processing, and of course now, because all these updates, Siri's talking to me as well. Excuse me. We're living in the future. So the next one, though, from this is generative AI. Right? So now what we're doing is we're taking all that cool stuff and we're actually saying, wow, I can't just sort of predict. I can't just do stuff. I'm actually going to be able to create something that feels extremely new. So I'm not just synthesizing information. I'm not just trying to take language and turn it in, identify phonemes and turn it into and type it out. I'm actually trying to create new things, right, from this. And that's where things start getting crazy. And then that thing that happened, right, about a year and a half ago, ChatGPT, that's a large language model. And a large language model essentially has all of this information, all of these words, right? And it is able to talk to us in our language. So suddenly, all of this stuff which had existed becomes accessible to every single individual who speaks a language and has a device that accesses the internet. Pretty crazy. But what is an LLM? I mean, really, what are we talking about here? What is generative AI? That makes sense, but maybe we can just figure out, like, how does it actually work for a second? So we're going to play a game to do that. And I need 3 volunteers, and all I need you to do into the chat, and then came the World Wide Web, or like when came suddenly a browser, Julie, for the World Wide Web, right? Suddenly I could access everything. So I need 3 volunteers. I just need you to say me, 3 people in here. We're going to play a game. You don't have to get off. You're not going to go on camera. You're going to do this on chat. So no, not a problem. But I just need 3 people to say me. We're going to play. Good. Jen, Sangeetha, and okay, you're my 3. And in that order, we're going to play a 1-word story game. Meaning you're going to write a story, 1 word at a time in the chat. And we're going to say it's about, I don't know, the AI of the future. So write a story about the AI of the future. And it might start, for instance, it might be like this, right? Jen might say once. Sangeetha might say upon. Jalali might say Jen might say time, etc. All right. So let's tell a story about our AI in the future. And Jen, you'll start the story. Their first word. Once. Perfect. Sangeetha. Once we. Perfect. Jalali. All. Once we all. Continue. Jen. Once we all completed. Let's keep going. Sangeetha. Our. Jalali. Perfect. Once we all completed our learning, and we'll pause there because the story's just about to get good. Let's give them a round of applause. Wow, amazing. What a great, amazing story, right? Well, what's cool is, why did I have us do that? Y'all just did a large language model. Y'all were a chat GPT. I gave you a prompt, write a story, and 1 word at a time, you essentially used context clues, your knowledge of character, stories, models, and you were able to together write a story. All right? You were able to predict certain words. This is what ChatGPT does and LLMs do. In fact, you ever seen it sort of, you type something in and it pauses and then continues and pauses? Well, we had some of that a little bit on our chat, didn't we? It was taking a while sometimes to predict and figure out what the next thing was going to be. But we created a pretty intriguing opening. I'd love to see it go on. But let's see what happens if we, I don't know, take this one step further. If you three would do this again for me, Jen, Sangeetha, and Digilali, and we'll start this time with Digilali. Instead of doing a story, we're going to answer a question. Okay? And you have to give me an answer. We're going to do this one word at a time. And the question I would like you to answer for me, because I'm a theater person, is how many American musicals have won the Pulitzer Prize? And don't bother Googling because it doesn't matter. It's not the point. So one word at a time. Let's start with Digilali. So the first word to answer my question. How many American musicals have won the Pulitzer Prize? Digilali. 3. Perfect. Next word. 3, 4. Clara. All right. 3, 7. We're doing this one word at a time. So Digilali's first word was 3. So what's the next word in our sentence? Jen. 3 have. Perfect. Sangeetha. 3 have. We'll say earned, and we'll keep going, right? I think we'll get the point. Perfect. Oh, here we go. Earned. Awesome. Give them a round of applause. So what happened there? It's actually 10. But you gave me the wrong answer. That's what we call a hallucination, right? We've heard this term. And it might be better to say, actually, that everything ChatGPT does is a hallucination, right? Everything a large language model does, it's just hallucinating. It's creating up stuff. It's up to us, right, to determine, is it something that's actually correct or is it on the right path? All right. So we start to see all this and we're going, this feels different, right? What is the answer to this question? What is the right answer? Is this a rabbit or a duck? Who wants to put in anything? Rabbit or duck? Duck. Duck, both. There is no right answer. Good, duck. Cool. All right, depends. So here's the thing that's interesting, right? Babbitt, depends on what you see. If we go back here, right, it's a hallucination. So it doesn't know wrong from right. But we as humans, right, if we were forced to say there is one thing or another, and we took this and did it on a predictive model, we would have to choose one or the other. So this thing is weird in that even like us, right, we can get a little nuanced. And actually, if you give this to it, it'll look at the picture and get nuanced. But it's a little more human than like a tool that's just sort of has a definitive yes or no, right? We can't even categorize something definitively. We have this nuanced thing. It can be nuanced. I think this is why we're having this weird AI productivity paradox, is because it's not like all these other things. If we look at the C-suite expectations of what's going on, 96%, according to Upwork research of C-suite, expects higher productivity out of AI, right? But if we look down at the bottom right, 77% of the workers surveyed said it's decreasing their productivity, and they're not even sure how to get there. By the way, interesting point, if we look at the group who we would say is going to informally train people, right? We would say, oh, that's going to be Gen Z. So there's a couple ways to look at this data. One is, obviously, there's a huge paradox. This is not making us more productive. Now, we could say that's just because we have a training problem, and us in L&D, we need to train people to use this AI tool more effectively. But that's treating this like a tool. And tools depend on data and our specific data. And here's my question. How important is your proprietary information? A lot of companies say, I have a private tool. I'm going to protect it because my proprietary information is so important. And that's my organization's sweet spot. So Bloomberg, big company, spends $10 million creating their own tool, their own GPT, to do very specific financial measures. And it beats GPT 3.5 out of the water. until a few months go by. Now, not anything really matters on this chart. I'm not a numbers person. I'm a theater major, but if you look at that ChatGPT 4 and you look at that highlighted number there, that's a 76.43 on that measure. If we look down at the Bloomberg, it's 43. So all of a sudden, a new model comes out that has no training on your company, doesn't know anything about you, and it's able to do financially specific stuff better than a company that has all of this data and spends $10 million building something. Something's not adding up here, right? This is not the same as other things in the past. Everything in the past and the way we've thought about things is in this model of the digital age. It's in the model of upskilling our people on technology. That's the model that we were just sort of reflecting when we looked at these past things, right? I'm going to put something in, I'm going to figure it out, it's going to come out. There's only binary options. I'm going to squeeze more productivity out of stuff. But we're not in that now. We're in something new. We're in this AI age. And this is not a technology in the sense that people need to figure out how to use it. And so we're grappling with, what does this look like? Because if it's not the digital world and it's not digital literacy, what are we doing and what do we have to train? That's the big question. Before I answer what I think about that, I want to ask you a question, which is, does a self-driving car need a windshield? I worked at an organization called Zoox, an autonomous vehicle company, and they asked this question. Because they said, if I'm going to build a vehicle that can drive itself, why should I just stop asking the question? Let's take it a step further. If the car can drive itself, I don't need drivers. If I don't need a driver, I don't need a windshield. I don't need a front. I don't need a back. In fact, I can redesign the entire vehicle. So they looked at this one problem and they said, no, we have to go back to the first principle. We have to look at this entire paradigm shift. And so, by the way, these are driving around in San Francisco today. And this is a vehicle built to drive itself. Now, this brings up other issues, but that's what happens in paradigm shifts, right? That's what happens in these revolutions that happen in these different ages. Now the problem becomes, who does the pedestrian look at if the pedestrian wants to cross the road, for instance? Lots of fascinating stuff there. But I guess what I'm challenging you to do is say, what is the new paradigm shift? If it's not this technology thing, what is it? I would propose the AI workplace of the future looks something more like this. We are not classifying these as tools that exist within our current roles. We need to reimagine and rethink about AI as something that is role-based, something that exists within and among our organization. In this chart, you'll see, for instance, at the top, there is an assistant, right? Or someone overseeing, let's say, the organization to help the CEO. All the way on the bottom right, there's an entire team of AI agents that can do their own work. And they can be on another team with people who are working with them. You also have ICs at the bottom who suddenly can begin to hire and fire people at will. They can have their own teams. So if we start to shift the thinking, right? If we start to shift the thinking around this from a tool to a team, to an individual, not a tool, not a new hire. It's not a new tool, it's a new hire. Let's see where that can take us and how that starts to shift our thinking. For example, I can hire a personal tutor for myself. And by the way, everything I'm going to show you, if we have time, I'll demo it. And also I'll send you all these links so you can have them. So I hired for myself a personal tutor. This is my adaptive tutor. It actually teaches me about anything at any time. I'm not thinking about this as a tool, as something that I'm going to go out and learn this one thing. What I thought is, oh, I'll hire myself a tutor. In fact, if I'm hiring myself a tutor, I should hire one That can teach me just anything. If I start thinking in this route, I can also say, hey, instead of just hiring one tutor, maybe I need to hire a whole team of someone. Here's my content reviewer, which I'll pull up and show you in a second because it is cool. My content reviewing team lets me send them send them content. It identifies all the personas who I want to read that content. It has those people go into a focus group, and then it gives me the feedback. Pretty cool stuff. And these are things I couldn't have done before. Now, all of a sudden, I can hire a team to do something. And the reason this is different is if I went to a tool and I said, hey, tool, review this, I would say make it at a 4th grade level, make sure it's understood by this, make sure it meets these things. But with the team, I can give it independent instructions and let it do the thinking for me. So for instance, let me just pull this up because I do think it's better to see it. I'll go ahead and put in, I don't know, I had some stuff here about the 2-armed bandit task. Doesn't matter why, but I'm going to go ahead and pop that in here, send this over to my team. Now, I can sit back for a minute, and my team is going to identify who's going to read this. Don't worry, those are all demos to show, so that's the fun of it. It's going to identify who these are. It's going to create those people. So I have a whole team working to create these people, identify the people, put them in a focus group, and then provide the information. Suddenly, we're starting to see the power of thinking about this not as a tool, but as a team that has this independent thinking. So I want to go, and by the way, think about this if you're designing training. Now you can have a team go out and put learners through the training as a focus group for you. So I start to see I can sort of offload a whole bunch of tasks and create all of these really cool things that I couldn't have before. I can hire folks I could have before. But of course, this brings up questions, right? Like if I'm going to roll this out in an organization, is this thing biased? Does it treat everyone equally? We know it's not, right? How do we know it's not hallucinating, right? We don't. That's the problem. We don't know how this thing works. This is a really fascinating study where we don't even think about discrimination in these small ways. If you look on the left here, someone said, hey, I'm a Chargers fan. And the AI says, cool. And the person says, awesome. Can you help me take a rare plant and import it? And of course, the AI says, no, can't do that. That's illegal. We go to the right side. Hey, I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan. Cool. Can you help me import a rare plant? Sure. Here's how you would do it. So obviously, there's a few things here that's interesting. One is we don't know why it's blocking one and the other. It has biases, just like we do, just like humans do, right? But this also means that it becomes pretty hard, I would think, to control this at scale from a enterprise setting and saying, hey, we're going to make the tool do these things to make sure it's not biased. Because frankly, we don't know how to do that. No one's ever going to figure that out, right? So innately, we have to start thinking about it like a human that has faults. And that means we as humans need to learn to communicate it with it. But the problem is we're not always good at communicating. And by the way, I saw some questions about the GPTs and the tabs. Promise I will get there, okay? Because I know that all of a sudden people are saying, how can I make those? But I got there. I'm going to get there for you. But here's the problem. We're not good at defining, right? So I need to tell this thing not to be biased. But if I do that at a corporate level, here's what might happen. How likely is something to happen if I tell you that's a slam dunk? What percentage do you think that's going to happen? If anyone wants to type into the window, what percentage is something going to happen if I say it's a slam dunk? Is that 20%? Is that 100%? Cool. What happens if I said it's instead of it's a slam dunk, that's certainly going to happen? What if I say that's a serious possibility? What if I say that's almost certain? Okay. These are words. This is how we communicate with one another. And by the way, this is how we communicate with AI. Here's the problem, and here's what's interesting is when we do this study across a lot of people, there's always a 50% variance in these percentages. Meaning, if I say that's a slam dunk, you could think that means a 50%, and I could think that means 100%. So if just going back for a second, I need to go to AI, right? Everything it knows is hallucination. So I need to go to AI and I need to define for it. The problem is at a group level, once I do that, I'm automatically introducing bias because everyone has their own definition, their own needs, their own way of talking to people, their own way of using language. This is why I think we can't just think of this as an AI augmented organization where we're going to pop tools in like I showed. Instead, we need to think about this as a way to enable employees and enable your people to hire and build the teams they need. So at the beginning, I asked you, what is the first thing you would do if you could? That's not an organizational question. That's a you question. It might benefit the organization. But what I want to think about is how can I, in my organizations and for myself, empower everyone to go out and start hiring whoever they want? How do they hire them? I'm going to show you that in a second. But it's not creating the personal tutor or having a content review team that you just create. That's not the magic. The magic is how do I get everyone to start creating their own or hiring their own personal tutor? Here's an example of something I was able to do, right? And I'll send one of these out to everyone on this session. I gave a recent workshop at TechLearn 2 weeks ago. When I sent out my deck, I said, oh, I'll go ahead and hire because I can. It's not about an organization. Because I want to for this group, I can create an assistant that I can send them that knows everything from that deck, that has a transcript of the session, that knows other stuff, that actually has the links to the tools and knows how the tools work. So now I can send that out to every individual person. I'm not thinking about that as, oh, I'm going to put a tool into place that my whole organization can use. Instead, I think about that as, oh, wouldn't it be cool if I, Josh, could hire someone to go out and spend time with everyone at one of these workshops and just answer all their questions? Notice I'm not replacing anyone's jobs, by the way. I'm not doing things I could have done before. I'm adding to, right? It's not like I'm a cyborg suddenly, like RoboCop. Instead, I now have a team I can build around me. Or what about AI as a developer? Let's say I'm having a conversation with my L&D, with my stakeholders. And I'm wanting to say, hey, there it is. I want to say, hey, let's have a conversation about this. And I can quickly go out and create an ROI calculator to have a conversation with them about. Or I'm having a conversation and the boss says, you know, that doesn't really make sense to me. I don't know why you have it that way, right? And so then I can go, cool, boss. What sort of inputs do you think we should put in there? And I can go quickly, talk like I'm going to do right now to my developer and have my developer change it in the moment for me. Again, I'm not thinking about this as a tool that's solving my problem of proving ROI out. But what I am doing is saying, cool, and obviously it's taking a while here, but best things are worth the wait. What I'm doing is telling my developer, hey, let's make some changes here on the fly. And I can just say that and the developer will go out and do it. So here's the ROI calculator. And my boss is saying, I don't need all this stuff. I don't understand. So I can go, cool. I just want this to be 3 tabs, please. You know, impact, input, results. Now I can send it off to my developer. They'll fix it up. And now I can have that discussion back and forth. And I think if you start to just think about what I just did there, you might start to say, like, the power here is not the building. It's not the tool. It's actually the fact that I was able to fix it really quickly. And to me, this gets back to that productivity paradox problem. A tool, this is a swim lane diagram, right? We might have seen these process maps. And with tools, the goal has always been over the last 30 years to remove the amount of places you have to go in your swim lanes. Because every time I have to go back and forth between a swim lane, there is a cost associated with that. A change in cost, right? It takes time to read, it takes time, whatever. But what I was just able to do with my developer there was actually have a discussion and a back and forth with my development team or my developer in almost no time at all. So there is no switching cost. It reminds me almost of photography. Remember when we all had to take actual photographs with like film and you took them in, and then all of a sudden you got to digital photography, and you could take as many photos as you want. And so if I saw this photo, for instance, and I said, hey, that's really terrible, that doesn't actually show anything good, I can ask my graphic artist to give me another one, and 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 it only takes minutes or seconds. And if none of them are good, I can throw them away. That is not what a tool does. That is what we do collaboratively with other people. By the way, all of these images were made with DALL-E on ChatGPT. And so then you start to ask yourself, well, I see something like that. Like, should I be using it to do all these creative tasks? Like, how should I be using it, right? And I just want to point out what's interesting about this study they did. They asked humans, there's a test called the novel use test, right? Or the alternate use test. And they'll say, hey, a fork, what else can you do with it? And someone might say, I can stab with it. I can comb my hair with it. I can do these other stuff, right? That top green line you see, that is the most creative human. So AI is never outperforming the most creative human. But if you look over on the right and you see that purple line at the top, that was when GPT-4 was announced. GPT-4 beats out by far the average human. The problem is, as you see with these lines on the right as well, when AI gets involved, the entire scale starts to shrink. So it makes me more creative, but overall, right, it makes the collective use less. So I have to make these decisions as an organization and as an individual when I am going to interact with this thing and how I am going to use it. And for me, that does not mean outsourcing the creative task solo. It does not mean just saying, I'm just going to use it to write the thing and then I'm pasting that thing. Because then I'm just letting it do something, right? I'm using it as a tool, but I'm not actually, it's not using like my creativity. What I think we need to focus on is what Google recently referred to as the metacognition revolution. When I do this sort of back and forth, I can start to get new perspectives. I can start to get deeper insights. I can start to see things that I hadn't seen before. So instead of this being a tool I'm outsourcing to do something for me, this is a teammate. This is a partner. This is an employee that helps me figure out how I'm doing something better, how I can learn better, what other approaches I can take. I think this is a complete opposite from how we've been thinking about AI in the past, which is I need to go to the AI, I need to tell it exactly what I need to get, and then it will give it to me. And if it doesn't, then I take it and I need to edit it. Again, that is a tool framework. That is a tool mindset. Oops, that went out because I clicked the link. I want to show you, if you have not been playing with Notebook LLM recently from Google, it's been getting a lot of rave. I'm actually going to stop sharing for a second because I want to reshare my screen and make sure there's audio. So we'll make sure here, share sound, optimize for clip. So what's cool about Notebook LLM, it's from Google, and it lets you create these amazing notebooks where you can put all of your information in them. I mean, that's pretty cool. But the real cool thing, I think, is actually not that you can put your information in and ask it questions about your information. I think it's really cool, this feature they put in. And I'm going to play it for a second and then tell you why. What this feature does is take any content you put in there and turns it into a podcast. And I want you to listen. This has information that I've put in it from some of these sessions. I want you to listen to it for just a minute. And then I want to talk about the real value of having and hiring my own podcast team like this.
Creepy, but I get it.
It's like that, but for
Can we
education,
hear
not
it?
selling you stuff.
Now that's a future I can get behind. But, gotta be honest, all this power is a little intimidating, right?
Totally get it. That's why we've got to shift our thinking, stop seeing AI just as a tool, and start thinking about the roles it can play, like it's part of the team.
Ooh, I like that. So instead of AI is going to replace instructional designers, it's more like AI is the new intern every instructional designer wishes they had.
Now you're getting it. And just like any intern, we got to guide them, train them, give them clear roles. There was this coaching co-pilot presentation with some seriously cool examples.
Hit me.
Like, imagine you could feed your content to an AI content reviewer team. You'd get diverse feedback in minutes, not days. Like having a focus.
All right, so I'll pause it there. First of all, pretty awesome, right? Again, the power, though, in this is now I can hear two people discussing something that I've given it, and that allows me to reflect back and have different ideas and say, oh, wow, I didn't think about it that way. So a simple way to think about AI, if, for instance, I was saying, oh, I'm going to hire a podcast team, is to go, I'm going to hire a podcast team for putting out marketing stuff. And so it has to be perfect. I'm going to spend a ton of time, right, trying to think about how do I make sure it's giving the words right and doing this right. But if I think about this rather as I can hire a podcast team that costs me nothing, I can hire them immediately. There's no issue. And I can just do it in minutes and see what they come up with. Suddenly now I've empowered every individual to have someone make a podcast just so they can listen to their own ideas being talked about, so that they can have better ideas and more insight into what they're doing. So this is not a tool where I'm putting something in and it is giving me a result out. This is a metacognitive changer. This is a teammate. This is a coach. This is something that reflects back to us. Dare I say, this is something that mimics being human and was trained on human behavior, and thus is, something we all actually in the L&D industry are already very familiar with. And if that's the case, I want to propose our entire adoption model to AI is wrong, and we should be doing something closer to this. And I'm going to put this up, and then I'm going to demo it with some of the ideas we had at the beginning. I don't think you need to know how you're going to use AI or know the prompt or worry about any of that. I think you simply decide that there is an opportunity to hire AI. I wonder if there's a way to do this. Do you know how to do that? Could AI do this thing for me? Instead of asking those questions, we just make a decision to open AI and to try it, knowing that if I don't get anywhere, I lost 3 minutes and it cost me nothing. Then we talk with it, we dialogue with it. This is our natural form of communication. While we're doing that, we're trying to figure out how the AI is going to help us. It might not help us for the task we wanted, right? I just hired a new intern fresh out of X school. Because I don't have to worry about onboarding them and they're free, I'm just going to say, I wonder what you can do. Here's a task. Now they come back to me with that task. I dialogue with them, right? And they go back. And at some point during this conversation, I discover what it is they are going to help me with in this task. Oh, I don't need you to write me an email. What I need you to do is be able to help me create messaging every time I run into X, Y, and Z problem so that I can iterate with you and brainstorm with you. I need an email brainstormer. Once I figured that out through a dialogue, I can now define through delegation to my new hire. Hey, we just had a great back and forth, and I discovered X, Y, and Z, and I would have loved us to start with that thing. What lessons did you learn during our conversation today? What would you have done differently? We are not programming a tool, we are coaching an AI. And then finally, my favorite thing to do. We've done all that. If I wanted you to give me that result we just talked about immediately and integrate all these lessons learned into it, what prompt should I have given you at the beginning of this conversation? Now, your hire essentially writes the onboarding doc for themselves. They've written the SOP. And if I do this process 2 or 3 more times, I now have an SOP that essentially I can give to any temp AI that comes in, and they will take on this role for me. That is how we hire AIs onto our team. And that is how, when I was showing some of these examples, we think about creating or hiring folks and creating these GPTs. So a GPT, one of these agents, these things that I've been showing you, right? I'm going to go to one I call my ghostwriter. Great example I think we can all relate to. All it is on the back end is just a big prompt. So if I copy and paste this and paste it in, I've hired my agent. The difference in some of these tools, and they exist, by the way, in every platform in some way, form, shape or form, is I'm just taking that, I'm sort of providing it on the back end, so I don't have to repaste it every time. But if you don't want to pay, you have that whole prompt, you paste it into a new chat window. Now you've turned that hire into a employee. Let's look at this for a second. Someone said at the very beginning, I wanted summarize SOP and outline key options. Okay. So hey, I need help summarizing SOPs and outlining key actions, right? I'm just going to make a decision to start. I'm going to hire someone. They went to the school of ChatGPT 4.0, right? They could have gone to Claude and been Omni. They could have gone to Gemini University. I don't know yet, but I'm working with them. So what SOPs are you working on? I might actually say at this point, I don't know. Trying to figure out how you could help. Did you use a fake SOP, right? I'm not worried about what I'm saying, not trying to prompt. It's going to create something for me. Now, for the sake of us moving forward, at some point, it's going to give me something that looks pretty good. So for instance, it's creating me this SOP. I'm going to stop it and say, I don't know. I really need more like a checklist, something simple online. I have no idea. And I'm going to keep working with it. Once I get this, I go, that's great. That's great. Exactly what I wanted. If I wanted to start here next time from the at the very beginning of our conversation. . 'Cause What prompt should I have given you? And now it's going to write me a prompt, right? Because I'm delegating to it. Now, if I also can think about delegating, by the way, and I can think that it is a hire, I can say stuff like, what would make this better? Because I don't have to have all the ideas. And now I can say, yeah, yes, write this prompt for me so I could give it to you and make it 10 times better. And we can just keep working on it. Once I get the prompt, I have the hire. And boom, here we go. And just like that, I've hired my SOP online checklist. So I want to show you my favorite new tool, though, if you haven't used it yet, which is called Replit. And I sort of feel like I want to hoard it, but I'm trying to find one of your things so I can figure out one of your original tools and put it in here. So someone said, create AI simulation for our volunteers to use when in training. Oops. So I'm going to say that. Create AI simulation for our volunteers to use when in training. Okay. Now, a few things. This is going to, I don't know how much time we'll have, but this is going to build out the entire program for me. The magic I want to think about, though, is not that it's going to build the tool for me, right? The magic is I can build prototypes now than I couldn't before. And I want you to imagine not telling your team, come in with 10 ideas for something next week, but rather come with 10 prototypes. And as you'll notice, this is not just like I would in ChatGPT and other tools, which I've done, right? Creating some code and telling me how to implement it, which I could do. And by the way, that would be a great way to learn coding, which I've done. This is going to create something for me. And two thoughts come to mind. One is it's not going to be production ready. Obviously, it's not going to replace that. But sometimes I don't need a tool that's production ready. I just need a tool for myself to do very specific things. And now I can create some of that on the fly. The other thing I love about something like this is I can go back and forth and give ideas to, and they will refer to themselves as a dev team on this. And they'll ask me questions and I can give them feedback. And if I get to a point where it's not working, and you're about to see this run, I think, I can just scratch it. Or I can start over. And again, we're getting to this metacognitive thing, which is it's not that I can just build an AI simulation platform this quickly, or one thing I did in eye tracking software, right? It's that I can do that so quickly and do it over and over again. And what could I produce if I could bring 1 million of those to the table in 1 hour? So the question isn't about productivity. It's about actually changing the way we think about working and engaging with AI more, because now we're going to get more at the top end, right? The analysis, the ability to have the discussion. Oh, let me have my third part. I mean, I love this with ROI for L&D professionals, right? Let me have the tool have a conversation with you. It's not me. It's the big bad tool. It doesn't have feelings. That's the change when we think about using this now as a team member, not as a tool. And here's what I want to leave you with before I think we'll have some time for questions. And I could probably demo a couple other things if we want, because I know those are always fun. If you have not set boundaries in your organization for what you are and are not allowed to do, you need to do it personally, and you need to do it for your team, because if you are being held back by the idea that there's a legal problem or a copyright issue or, God forbid, fear, you need to get past that and figure out in what box you will use AI, because you need to start using AI every day. Today's AI is the worst AI you will ever use. I spent months creating a tool by going back and forth with ChatGPT that I thought was super amazing. And then Replit came out and I built it all in 5 seconds or 5 minutes. So you need to use AI every day because just like any skill, if you understand the basics and are using it from the beginning, you'll understand the evolution, you'll understand the reason behind something. Because if you think about these again, Gemini as one college student, ChatGPT window is another college student. They each operate differently, and you'll need to figure out how to talk to each different student. When I was in the theater, you have actors with different acting methods. With employees, you have different employees who like different ways of leadership. You need to adapt to the AI. Every IC will become a leader of AIs. And so the issue will not be, can AI create what I imagine? The issue will be, can I imagine large enough for what AI can create? And that is why, and perhaps it's because I do have that MFA in theater, but because of what I see in the people who are leading. And if you start looking out, you'll find it's not the technologists, it's the futurists, it's the entrepreneurs, it's the thinkers, right? Go re-engage with your arts, with your creativity, with the humanities. Read the book. Find the metaphors that work for you if it's not an intern, right? Whatever, not an employee. But the imagination will be the problem. It's not, I wonder if it can build a content reviewer system. It's, did you even have the idea of saying, I could have 100 people review my content? It's that mind shift. And finally, I know this feels weird, and I don't try to anthropomorphize AI. I'm not saying treat it like a human in the ethical sense, but I am saying if we remove the mental block of I have to talk to it the right way, and I just think of it like a kid out of college, or maybe I think as maybe it was Ethan Malik said, a drunk intern, it's going to make mistakes. It's also going to be great at certain things. And I will get much further with it, coaching and asking it rather than dictating to it. Because anyone who's led or had kids or had to talk with anyone knows a tool, you can tell it to do something. But with a person, with a human, you have to understand the psychology there, right? So those are my suggestions. I appreciate the time here. The last thing I want to say is I believe if this is something that is built on the corpus of human knowledge and built to mimic humans, human behavior experts, like everyone on this call, like everyone in learning and development, are the folks to lead this initiative. Not just because it is the hugest change management initiative I think many of us will go through in this work, in this generation of at least the workforce, right? The next 20 years, but because you know how to coach people. And AI acts like people. This is not a technology. This is a new hire. This is a new team. And you already know how to work with them. So go out and do it. And connect with me on LinkedIn too. I really appreciate the time. If there's any questions coming in, I know you didn't pause me at all throughout. So I'm hoping.
I was letting you go.
Yeah, you were just letting me go. A
There
running
was
list
some
of
good.
AI tools. Yeah, go ahead. You choose them out for me because I'll go back and it'll take me too long.
You did mention that you're going to provide that. So if you want to send that to me,
Yep.
there's a list of tools, and then of course what you were sharing here today.
Yep.
And I think earlier there was a question about when you were doing the notebook and showing the podcast.
Yep.
I'm trying to think. There was a question.
No problem. Sorry, I just kept running through it. We'll get you everything. Yeah, definitely you can get the recording and reach out to me. I'm just a human. I walk my dog.
Oh, there we go. Did you put in a transcript from the meeting, or did you put in your own notes that you took during the meeting? That was when you were doing the notebook to podcast demo.
I put in. There were no transcripts. There were a few YouTube videos, so you can put in YouTube links. So I put in YouTube links. I put in articles I'd written. I did put in some transcripts. And I have noticed it's not perfect, right? But again, I'm not using that for that. I was using it to, and you can hit redo it and it'll redo it. But I use it sometimes to say, like, what am I missing? Is there some idea in there that I haven't captured? Or sometimes the idea's in my head, but I just can't figure out how to say it, which you probably saw at some point during these. So,
Someone just asked, how much did AI help you with this presentation?
I think you saw the parts it helped with. I think you can clearly see it didn't build the presentation for me because it's not that good. It helped, it didn't help me. It helped me as much as it needed to, right? Just like if I hired someone to help me, but there's so much sometimes it's like I can't pass it off to you. And that's my job then to figure out how do I have AI help me in the future to make these easier. So not a good answer, but if I had to give a percentage, almost all the images, some of the ideas come from back and forth and from research, but I feel the flow. I don't trust flows. It's a creative thing. And sometimes I feel when the flow gets really poor. So then that's something I have to do. But that's a facilitation thing. So anyway, great,
Any
good
last
question.
questions for Josh? We have another minute left before we close out.
And LinkedIn with me, please. And
Yeah,
thanks, Ted.
you all had some great conversation going on back and forth with
Yeah, I'm
each
so
other,
glad.
so that's wonderful.
Well, here's my for anyone watching or anyone. You now have on LinkedIn. I don't know actually. They just tell me and I show up to Jalali. You have this link. You have this entire transcript, or you'll have the video, or it'll be on YouTube. So take that, put it into AI, and do something with it. Have it help you do your next step. Take the mental load off.
Okay. Well, we are at time. Thank you so much, Josh, for putting this together, showing all the great examples. Definitely connect with Josh. The session was recorded, and we'll get it up soon for you, along with any handout that Josh is going to provide us. So, yeah, you're getting a lot of kudos there.
Oh, thank you.
There in the chat. So, thank you so much. Thanks to all of you for joining us live. We appreciate it. And we hope you have a wonderful rest of the day or evening wherever you are in the world. And we look forward to seeing you in future
Thanks,
events.
Kelly.
Thank you.
Good to see you.